Hi, Abe.
Hello.
Hi, Mario.
Hello.
Gimel Amid Aleph, Horyus. Zois Toiras Ha'oila He. So there's three miyutin. Zois, only this. Ha'oila, this oila. He. So there's three miyutin. And we're trying to prove that it's Rabbi Yehuda who has the same notion of miyut. Here also, a korban olah that's put on the mizbeach, you can keep him on the mizbeach, except you bring him down if was shechted at night, if the blood was spilled before the zrika, or if the dam was taken outside of the azara. So it's Rabbi Yehuda who learns miyut. Viboy is saying that the Bryce is Rabbi Yehuda from, because it says v'adayin ani oimer lo matis smuk b'slo Rabbi Yehuda. The part of the Bryce that says adayin ani oimer cannot be Rabbi Yehuda diktoni. Rav Kol Shechatu, if the majority of Klal Yisrael made the sin, Beis Din Mevin al Yedei Par. That's when Beis Din has to bring the parliament over. Vi Rabbi Yehuda ha'amar tzibur hu demaisi Beis Din lo. It's only the tzibur that does it, but not the Beis Din. It's not. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Shiva Shvatim Shechatu Meviim Shiva Parim. Each shevet, let's say 7 out of the 12 shvatim made the sin, each shevet of that tzibur has to bring a par. But the tzibur, according to Rabbi Yehuda, brings it, not the best. So it's that part is certainly not according to Rabbi Yehuda. But Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel explains the Mishnah, Zu Divrei Reb Meir. That if a private individual ate chayla because Bezdin paskin that it was permitted, he's chayv to bring his own korban. Now, my Rav Meir or my Rabban, what is this machlokas? The Tanya. Hoyru va'asu. If Bezdin made a psak and they followed their own psak, Rav Meir poiter, the chachamim mechayvin. Now, who we talking about? Man asu. Who committed the avera? Elam Bezdin. My time in Rabbanon de mechayvi. Why would the chachamim be mechayv? Tanya yachol horu Bezdin va'asu Bezdin yachol yu chayavim Talmud loymar v'nelam davar meinei akol va'asu toleh b'kol v'rot lu bebezdin. And therefore, their act, Ma'isa Toleh B'Kol V'Rot Lu Bebezdin, so they would not be bring. Ella Hoyru Bezdin V'Asur Rav Hakol. We're talking about the Bezdin made the psak, and the majority of Klal Yisrael made this avera. So then, my time in Rav Meir the Potter. Ella Lav Bezdin V'Asur Miut Kal. We're talking about Bezdin made a psak, and a minority of Klal Yisrael did it. Ubaha Kamiflagi, and this is the machlokas. Marsav Rav Meir holds. Yachid Shasa Baraz Bezdin Potter. If an individual person, Klal Yisrael, eats chalep, that the Bezdin made a psak that it was mutter, he doesn't have to bring any korban. Umar Sav Yachid Shasa Baraz Bezdin Chayiv. So we see our Mishnah that said if a Yachid brings it Baraz Bezdin, that's Potter, that's certainly like Rav Meir. Rav Papa, there's no raya. Really, Kulama Yachid Shasa Baraz Bezdin. Maybe even the Chachamim can hold that. Ella, rather, Rav Meir and Chachamim argued something else. The concept whether Bezdin is Mashim L'Rav Tzivur Kamifli. Let's say you have 49.9% of Klal Yisrael that did the Aver. But then when you add 120 Sanhedrin who also did it, and that flips them over to 51%, do you now consider it Rav Tzibur? Marsa v'chacham say, yeah, Bezdin Mashim Rav Tzibur, and therefore the Tzibur will be Chayiv. But Umarsa Rav Meir says, ain't Bezdin Mashim Rav Tzibur. So there's no proof necessarily that our Mishnahs are Rav Meir. V-Boy is saying, I'll give you different explanation of the Machlokes between Rav Meir and the Chacham. that Hoyru Bezin v'asu Ruba shall call. That Bezin made the psak, and the majority of Klal Yisrael did the Avera. And really, when it says Chayiv, it means the Bezin has to bring a Parlam Davar Shal Tzibur. And therefore, Rav Meir patters the Tzibur from bringing a korban. And who is then the Chachamim? Man Chachamim? It's Rav Shimon. The Amar Tzibur Maisi and Bezdin Maisi. That if the people did it, they would have to bring, and the Bezdin would have to bring as well. V'boy Sema, Shevet She'asu Baraz Bezdino. Each one of the 12 Shvatim had their own Bezdin. And let's say the Shevet of the Bezdin of Binyamin, Paskin, and all of the Shevet of Binyamin did like that Bezdin. Now, according to Meir, the din of Helam Davar Shel Tzibur doesn't apply on a Shevet. It only applies if Gans Klal Yisrael is involved. And therefore, that's why he's potter from Korban. Uman Chachami, Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanya, Shevet She'asa B'Haraz Beis Dino, Osra Shevet Chayiv. He held that the levitives of the Shevet would have to bring a Parlam Davar Shel Tzibur if the Shevet did the Avera based on their psak. V'boy Sam, I'll give you another version of the Machlokes between Rav Meir and Chachamim. That the Bryce is talking about Kagon Shechatu Shisha, Vehein Ruba Shel Kol. You only had 6 Shvatim. But if you added up the population, it turns out to be the majority of Klal Yisrael. Or Shiva, 7 Shvatim, Afal Pi She'ein and Rav Shel Kol. If you add it up, they're less than 50%. Umas Nisan Mani, Rav Shimon Elazar, the Tanya, Rav Shimon Elazar Oimer. In the name of Rav Meir, Chatu Shisha, Vehein Ruba Shel Kol. 6 Shvatim sinned, but if you count them up, they're the majority. Or Shiva, 7 Shvatim sinned, Afal Pi She'ein and Ruba Shel Kol. Chayav. So therefore, we don't necessarily have a proof based on Rav Nachman Amar Shmuel that our Mishnah is Rav Meir. Amar Ravasi. Uvahoira halachach harov Yoshvei Eretz Yisrael. When we talk about Rov Bnei Yisrael, it's people who live in Eretz Yisrael. That's what establishes it, not Jews that are in exile. Shenamar vayas Shlomo ba'esahi. After the building of the bayis, Shlomo made a party. As a chag v'chol Yisrael. Aaron, I'm teaching right now. I'll have to call you back. Okay. Okay, I'll call you right back. Vayash Shlomo ba'esahi is a chag. O Yisrael imo kahal gadol milavo chamat ad nachal mitzrayim l'ftei Hashem Elokeinu shivas yomim arba'asar yom. This was a yontif that it was even on Yom Kippur. It started on the 8th, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. No, started on the 7th. It went from the 7th of Tishrei to the end of Sukkot. That year they didn't fast on Yom Kippur. Michtek, Siv, V'chol Yisrael imo. Says all the Jews were with them. So what do you need? Kahal gadol milavo chamat ad nachal mitzrayim lamali. Shema mina, hani hu de ikri kol, that those in Eretz Yisrael are called kol. Aval hanach lo ikri kol. But those that are chutz la'aretz are not considered kol. Now, Pshita Merubin Vinismatu. Let's say the Bezdin made a psak, and 51% of Klal Yisrael ate the chaylev. But then they became less than 51%. Some of them died, and now they're minority. So does Bezdin have to bring a parlam davar shel tzibur? Does each one have to bring their own korban? Hainu plikted Rav Shimon Rabbana. When you have the Kohen Mashiach, who is the Kohen that addresses the army of Israel and tells them to go home if you're newly married or whatever, or a king that made a chet, bishkaga. So the kind of korban you bring is different when you're a hedyoid versus if you're appointed a melech, a kohen mashiach, you bring a different kind of korban. So let's say they made a sin when they were a hedyoid, and then they were appointed as a melech or to the kohen gadol. So according to Chachamim, if they were a hedyoid when they made the sin, so they bring a regular korban like a hedyoid. But according to Rabbi Shimon, if they find out about their sin only after they were appointed, they are potter from the korban. So we would say that this machlokes, if it was merubim v'nismatu, the Chachamim would say, since they sinned when they were the majority, the Beis Din would have to bring a korban. According to Rabbi Shimon, no. If they only find out later, they would be a miut. But we're going to ask the opposite question. If they were muatin, if when they did the sin, they were 49%, and later on, v'nisrabu, let's say part of the majority who had not sinned died. So now the people who sinned are the majority. My. Do we say, mi pligi Rav Shimon Rabbanon, Rav Shimon do Ozel Basar Hayediya Machayev, that Rav Shimon, who says you go after when you found out about it, they're the majority, so the Beis Din would have to bring it. Rabbanon do Ozli Basar Achatis, since they were a minority at the time when they sinned, Beis Din would be potter, olo. So my. So what's the din? More of a tizbra, they're not the same cases. Eimer sheshamis like Reb Shimon, the ozel basu yediyah. Reb Shimon goes after when you found out about it. Heichi davi yediyah and chata b'chiyuv. The knowledge and the chet has to be in a situation where there's a chiyuv to bring a korban. Or let's say when you were a hedyoid or a melech, there's a chiyuv to bring a korban in both cases. But yediyah v'lo chata, if you have a knowledge but you didn't commit an aveira, mishamislei, would anybody say you bring a korban she'im kain? If Reb Shimon would go like that, laisi kehashta, why not bring a korban like a kohen gadol or a melech the moment he finds out about it? And why did Reb Shimon say you'd be potter? Ela Reb Shimon chatov yediyah boy. Reb Shimon requires both elements: the knowledge of the chet and the requirement to bring a korban. So there's no real answer to the shaila. Iboilu, we asked a fine question. Horu bezdin shechelev mutter. Bezdin paskin that chelev is permitted. The asu miut hakol, less than 50% aided. The horu bezdin behem, the chazru bezdin, they changed their mind. And then later on, they changed their mind back, the horu, and they said it's permitted. And now another group, asu miut acher. Another group of Jews did for the second heter, Mao. Is there Hitztarfus? Kivan Shtayadisnu, there's two separate knowledges, Lo Mitztarfi. We're not going to be Mitztarf them. They both remain miut. O Dilma, Kivan to Aidi V'Aidi Chelevu. They both eat Chelev, you can add them up, maybe Mitztarif. Bimtim Slur Kivan to Aidi V'Aidi Chelevu Mitztarif. If you're going to tell me since the sin involved eating chelev, you would say it's starfus. What about miut b'chelev shel gabi akeva, u'miut b'chelev shel gabi dakin? There's different chelevs. Chelev on top of the stomach, and chelev that are on the walls of the back walls. Mao. Do we say hachavada kiven de basri, kroi kaasi? There's a different makor for each one of these different types of chelev in the psukim. And therefore, we would say lo mitztarif. Listen, they're both chelev, and the same isser, maybe mitztarif. if they're both chaylev, shem chaylev u'mitztarev. What about miut made a mistake by eating chaylev, and then miut ate dam on a bad psak mouth? Vada kiven the trade surinim. These are two different isters, chaylev and dam. The kiven shein ister shavel u'mitztaref odilma kiven shekorban shave. You bring a chatas no matter whether you eat chaylev or dam mitztaref. Maybe you'll have a tzad to say that maybe you do mitzvah chaylev and dam. What about a minority of Klal Yisrael ate chaylev and miut b'avodah zara? Ma, hachavada in isurin shavav ain't korban. They're not the same chiyuv. They're not the same korban. Because avodah zara you bring a seira. Oidil makivin da aidi va'aidi karesu. Listen. Ultimately, they both have kares. Maybe you would be mitzaref. Teiku, iboilu. Hoyru bezin shechelev mutter. Bezin paskin that chelev is permitted. Va'asu miut akol. Less than 50% of the Jewish people ate the chelev. Umeis also bezdin. The original bezdin died. Vomet bezdin acher. New bezdin. V'chazru v'hoyru. They made the same heter psak. And va'asu miut acher, and the second minority does it. Are they mitztarif? Alib in the mandomer, based in Maisi, according to the opinion that based in brings, if minority does it, lo tiboy. The whole listener, since there's always a minority. According to the opinion that Bezdin will bring, if I guess you combine them, then there's no sofek. The original whole lesson, the original Dayanim are not here. Because they died. So there's no Bezdin to bring the korban. Elakiti balacha liba demanda omar. That it's not the Bezdin, but the Tzibur themselves. My. Do we say Tzibur HaKoi? The Tzibur is there. Oidilma Yediyah Dahu Bezdin to Horubainin. We need the Das of the original Bezdin. They're not there. Teku. Rav Yonason. Mea Shiyashvu L'Hoyrus. You have 100 Dayanim that paskin. Ein chayovin ad sheyor kulon. It's got to be all 100. It's got to be unanimous. Shenemar v'im kol adas Yisrael yishgu. Ad sheyishgu kulon. Ad shetivshod oyro b'chol adas Yisrael. It's got to be all of Sanem. Amravuna bereid Rav Yoshia chanami mistavra. B'chol Torah kula kaimelon. Ruba kekulo. That a majority is like the whole thing. But hacha, ksiv kol ha'eda, or l'kacha afilu ein meya, they all have to agree. It's not. Hoyru bezdin. V'yada echad men sheto. One of the bezdin knew that they made a mistake. Otamid v'rui lo yirov, v'halach v'asal piyam. And this person went and paskin and did like they paskin. Bein sha'asu v'asayman, whether they all did it together. Bein sha'asu v'asachrim, bein sha'asu v'asa. They didn't do, and he did. Areza chayiv. He has to bring his own korban. And they should lo tol bebezdin. He was tolu in his own das. Hayhu shechayiv. But acher, somebody else that did it according to Rosh Bezdin, would be potter. Ve'amaya lo nigvoi ra. There were 100, and he was not part of the 100. He went back. He knew they made a mistake. Why should somebody else be chayiv? He, even though he knew they made a mistake, he sort of shaked with his head unanimously. Torshma. Haru Bezin v'yada echad mem sheto. Bezin made a mistake, one knew they made a mistake. V'amar le'en toinas, he told them, you made a mistake. Hare elu p'turim. So they would not have to, the Beis Din would not have to bring a korban. Taima d'amar toinatem. So then, P'turim. Hashasik mishlik, if he was quiet, chayovin. The Gomer law, Hahoira. This is going on, making the psak. Ve'amai haloha rukulan. What about the statement of Rav Yonason that it only works if all of them are unanimous? So Amr Hachinami Kikon Shehirkin Beroshet looked to the public like it was unanimous, even though he disagreed. He shook his head. Mazar Rav Misharshe, Samchu Rav Hussein al Divrei Rav Shimon Gamliel, V'al Divrei Rav Lozer ben Tzadok Shayu Oimrim, Ein Goizring Zerlat Sibur Ken Ravat Sibur Yichon Lamed Bay. We don't make a gzeira unless we know that the public can stand by it. The Omer Avada Barava Mikra, Pasuk in Malachti, B'me'eira temne arim, V'osiatem koivim agoy kula. That they weren't keeping maestras. They accepted a shvua b'me'eira. V'hachak ksiv agoy kula. There means ruba kakulo dami, not everybody. To Yufta, Rav Yonason to Yufta. Ella, if Rav Yonason is pushed away, my kol adas to kam rachmanan. Hachi kamer, i'ika kulam, if you have all the dayanim, or according to the rov, have you hayra. The ilo, love your rov, it's not hayra. The Rambam paskins like Rav Yonason that if even one of them did not agree, then the Bezdin is potter from Korban. Rav Yeshua Sor Sheyoshim Bedin, 10 Dayanim who are adjudicating, Kuler Tola B'Tzavar Kulan. The yoke that is around the prisoner's neck is really on their neck too. They have achrayus. Pshita Kamashmlon Shafil Tamid B'nei Rabo. If a Talmud hears his Rebbe make a mistake and he doesn't correct it, so he has the responsibility. He's not allowed to be quiet even for the Koven Rav. Ravuna ki havenafik lebeidina. When Ravuna went to adjudicate in Bezdin, Maisi Hasora Tanoid Devei Rav lekamei. He would bring 10 other Tanoim with him, like they're partners with him in din. Because he said, that they should share with me the responsibility of the psak din. When they would bring a piece of meat when it was a question of trephus, so he'd bring 10 butchers. That he would spread the responsibility out among all these other experts. Mishnah. Hoyru Bezdin. The Yadu Shato. Bezdin made him a psak, then they realized they made a mistake. Hoyru Bezdin. The Yodu Shato, they made a mistake. The Chazran, they went back. Bain Sheviu Kaparasa, whether they already brought a korban because the majority of Klal Yisrael committed the Avera. Ubain Shaloivi Kaparasa. V'halach, and one guy who didn't know that they went back on their psak. V'asal PM, and ate the chaylev, Reb Shimon Poiter. Reb Shimon said he's not chayiv. Reb Lezer Omer, it's a safek. He brings an osham tolui. Ezeu safek. Yashav lo b'soch beis, it was in his house, and that's where he did this aver chayiv. He brings an osham because he would have known that Bezdin went back. Halach Lom didn't say if he was in China. He relied on the original psak that he didn't hear that was switched. Potter. Shukar liftor min achoiva. I agree that the guy went to China is close to being potter. Amr ben Azai Maishna Zemen Yoshe Beveso. Why is it different than sitting in your house? Rabbi Kiva said, Yoshe Beveso Efshay Elo Sheyishma. He could find out about it. V'zeh lo elo Efshay Sheyishma. Haru Bezdin Lakros Kol Aguf. Bezdin Paskin that the whole mitzvah is thrown out. It's not a detail. Like Sha'amru Ein Nida B'Torah. There is no law of Nida, or Ein Shabbos B'Torah, Ein Avodah Zarah B'Torah. Hare Elu P'Turim. This does not create Par Elim Dover Shel Tzibor if the majority of Klal Yisrael committed the Avera. That's not a shoygei goyra. That's a complete toes. But Haru Levatel Miktzas, Ulakai Miktzas, they said, yeah, there is Shabbos, but this applies and this doesn't apply. Hare Elu Chayovim. Then they would bring a Par Elim Dover Shel Tzibor if the majority of Klal Yisrael did it. Keitzad Amru Yesh Nida B'Torah. Aval habal shemer yom kineged yom. In the laws of nida, so if you have 7 days of nidus and 11 days of zivus. If you bleed during the 11 days of zivus, if you bleed 3 days in a row, you become a zava gedol. You have to bring a korban. But let's say you bled 1 day, you have to keep the next day clean, and then you can live with your husband. But let's say he didn't do that. Or let's say they passed, you don't have to do that anymore. And they paskined that he's potter, right, which is a mistake. So then, if Klal Yisrael, more than 51%, made that Aveira, they would have to bring a parliament Davar Shel Tzibor. They said, Yesh Shabbos B'Torah, v'la motzim Meshusay Yachil, which is a Rabbim potter. They said if you carry from a private to a public, you're potter. Or Yesh Avodah Zarah B'Torah, Mishtachav potter. In all these cases, Areelu Chayavim. Bezin would be Chayav Parel Davar Shel Tzibor if Klal Yisrael acted the majority on that lenient psak. Shenemar v'nelam davar v'lo kol haguf. Already Rav my time at Rab Shimon. Rav Shimon pottered somebody who did an Aveira when Bezin sort of was choizer. I mean, Rav, my time at Rav Shimon, Hoyel v'shus Bezdin who also. He originally heard about the lenient psak. He never heard that they went back on it. So why should he be chayiv? He's not chayiv. Ikadiyami, other people learn this dialogue differently. Amri Rav, Omer Rav Shimon kolay ra, sheyatza b'rav tzibor. If the psak went out, even though later on Bezdin went back on it, yachid ha'oisa oisa potter. If a private individual acts on it and does the aver, you don't have to bring a korban. If you shlon it noirah, lav can be charged lemezid. Psak halacha is to let people know what is a shogig, what is a mezid. And somebody who acted on that kind of erroneous hoirah is considered a shogig because he relied on hoirah's Bezdin. And if Bezdin didn't know that Bezdin was choizer, he remains a shogig, not a mezid. Meisvei. I'll ask you a stira. Parlam davar shel tzibur. When the Bezdin has to bring the parlam davar, useiri avodah zarah, or the sa'ir, because Klal Yisrael did avodah zarah. Bitchila goyven aleh. So you make a special collection from the tzibur to pay for it. Did Rab Shimon. But Rav Yehuda, you don't have to make a special collection. Mitrumas alishkan in bar. The money that's already been collected, the machtus shekel, you could take it from there. So it's the general donation of the tzibur. So, why should, according to Rabbi Shimon, such a person be potter? Kivan de gabiluhu. He donates machtis shekel for the purposes of korbanos. Havile hoida elav chataso. He's in the parsha of hoida elav chataso. Must be when they did the collection, he was informed that Bezdin made a mistake. So Iboy Sema, Kigon Shagavustan, they were not informed. They made a general blanket collection without a specific collection. So he didn't know that Bezdin changed their mind. V'bay Semet Gon Shalayallah B'Mosli wasn't in the city. V'bay Semet Rav Kidich Tana Savar, or Rav held like another Tana. The Tanya Ipcha, that he learned a different Brisa. That B'tchila Goyvin Lehandiv Rabbi Yehuda, that initially they would make a collection specifically for them to bring the par and the Davar Shel Tzibur. Rav Shimon Omer, no. Mitrum Alishkein Boim, they don't make a collection. So therefore, according to Rav Shimon, it's going to be a fact that they won't know about it because they didn't have to make a special collection. Tani. If a Yachid made the Aveira after Bezdin went back on their erroneous psak, Reb Meir Mechayev, Reb Meir says such a person has to bring a korban. Rav Shimon Poiter. And Rabbi Lozer Oimer Sofek. Mishum Sumchus Omer Tolu. That you bring an Asham Tolu. Amrav Yechlam. Asham Tolu, it could be nayu. The nafkamina between Rabbi Lozer and Sumchus is Asham Tolu. According to Rabbi Lozer, you bring an Asham Tolu. According to Sumchus, whether Inari's Mechayev is a Sofek. You wouldn't have to bring anything. Amrav Zera, Mashal Rabbi Eliezer Lamad Dovadoymer. What is the Rabbi Eliezer Shita like? La'adam sha'achal Sofek Chelek Sofek Shuman. He has two pieces of fat in front of him. I'm sorry. He has one piece of fat. He doesn't know whether it's Chelev, whether it's Shuman. He thought it was Shuman, he ate it. And then he's told Noidelo that it was Chelev. If a person eats one piece of fat, which is Safek Chelev, Safek Shuman, we don't know for sure that there's an Isser there before the Safek. He's got to know that there's a possible Isser there. The normal case of Asham Tolui is two pieces. One is Chelev, one is Shuman, and he eats one of them. We don't know which one he ate. So then you bring an Asham Tolui because it's possible that he ate Chelev, but there you know for sure that there's Chelev there. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow.
What time tomorrow?
Tomorrow is Friday, so we'll learn at 4:00 tomorrow.
And shall we do Motzei Shavi again? It's going to be hot again. I mean,
We'll see. If it's not too hot, I'd rather learn in shul. We'll see. We'll
Alright.
see what the temperature is tomorrow.
okay.
Okay, we'll talk. Bye.
Yeah.